from discovering dance at age 12 to becoming a demi-soloist. What advice would you give to aspiring dancers who are just starting their own dance journeys?
The biggest piece of advice, regardless whether you started relatively late or if you started from the beginning, keeping that mindset of staying and remaining as a student, not just in your academic years, but additionally into your professional years as well. The more that you stay in the mindset as a student, the more successful you will end up becoming and the more humble you will also be in the entire process. It is more of a marathon than it is a sprint. What you do each and every single day is the determining factor of where you're going to come at the end of your career.
What was the mission and founding the Male Dance Connection?
One thing that I remember myself as a student, I had this feeling isolated, not feeling like I was doing the right thing because of what the rest of the world was saying outside of the dance world. Men shouldn't be, doing ballet. That's meant for girls or something along those lines. I wanted to change that idea. I wanted to be a platform where students, male students of any age, of any desire within ballet, not to ever feel like an outsider or to feel isolated within their own studio setting. I wanted to create a space that was building camaraderie.
Hello everybody, I wanted to introduce Bryce Lee here. He's demi-soloist with Colorado Ballet, and it is an honor to interview him, and this is a wonderful opportunity for him to share some of his insights and experiences, some advice for today's young students, and what he has to offer, particularly in male technique and artistry development. So Bryce, you are now at the 11th season with Colorado Ballet. You are a demi-soloist. In my opinion, that's a wonderful place to be because you are not at the top of your career, but you're on the way up, and beautiful journey. And you have had the opportunity to perform important roles in various companies and with the company, important roles with the company. And you had the beginning of your career. You were actually a musical theater background. And this is very interesting. And you changed around 12 years old. You became interested in dance, began study ballet with Dmitry Kulev, which is one of my favorite ballet teacher. And he doesn't know me, but I know him because I see a lot of his students' competitions, and wonderful, wonderful teacher. And can you tell us a little bit of that? How did you transform yourself from a musical theater interest student to ballet? What is it in ballet that made you that switch? Is it school, is it a teacher, or the curriculum? Can you elaborate that a little bit with us?
Yeah, so my biggest thing when I first started participating in musical theater class, I have a background in acting. We lived in LA, so I loved musical theater because it played a decent hand in both dance in particular, which I always had an interest in, but additionally in acting in that same respect. The one component that I didn't per se wasn't an outright passion with musical theater was just the rigor, the intensity of musical theater. And that's where ballet kind of took its own walk of life for me in particular. I found that with ballet, that between the discipline, between the structure, and the overall intensity, it suited my desires and needs a lot more. Unfortunately though, my initial classes that I participated in ballet in particular, I didn't have maybe the teacher that connected with me correctly, that made me see ballet for what it's truly worth. And so I had kind of a biased judgment. I didn't really enjoy it that much. I have two other siblings that actually started ballet at like 2 and 3 years old. So very, very young, kind of as most students typically follow. But it wasn't until we moved, so Oxnard is kind of more Northern California. It wasn't until we moved to Southern California and we had the opportunity of seeing better renowned and more, I guess, world renowned teachers such as Dimitri, even Salwa Rizkawa from Southland Ballet. That's when I really started to see and was able to participate both in classes as well as observing YGP, where I really was like, oh my gosh, this is what ballet truly can be. My prior judgment was kind of skewed a little bit. But then it was seeing Dimitri, seeing the way that he worked with the students. Even I remember still to this day, the first class I ever took with Dimitri, I walked out of that class absolutely just enthralled and overwhelmed with what I had just experienced. But in that same respect, I knew that that was what my calling was. I remember the first thing I did when I got home was immediately jump into a hot bath to take an Epsom salt bath. And I remember like 3-4 days prior, I like could not walk at all. Like I had never experienced that. And I had played sports prior to like ever starting ballet or dance as a whole. So that was kind of the initial inception. It was the athleticism and as well in combination with still it being an art form in that same respect.
It's that kind of exhaustion that makes you happy, and it's the sense of accomplishment. And so, would you say that it was those particular experiences when you met with a wonderful teacher? You know, in our business, I would refer to it as like a calling. I had those moments, a few moments like that, and I was absolutely astonished what a class made me feel and made me realize my potential. So it is not necessarily, I think, in my opinion, everyone has the chemistry, something just worked for them, right? Every teacher has that something, has that little gift, and that particularly works with the students. So I guess in your case, Mr. Kulev really spoke to this. He brought the inner side of ballet dancer out of you.
Without a doubt. If it wasn't, and again, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Both in terms of finding this passion in ballet, but additionally, just even where my career has amounted to. And relatively speaking, I started late, and my knowledge of ballet was very lackluster. But Dimitri put me on a one-way track for success in a lot of ways. There was many days where I'd come home feeling overwhelmed, but I was always a high functioning child, and I wanted to, I don't know, I always wanted to work. And I'm still in a lot of ways a workaholic. You have to be as a ballet dancer and teacher and everything. So yeah, it was without a doubt. If I hadn't found Dimitri, I probably wouldn't be here today. It takes a special type of teacher to promote that type of work out of a student. And, some students get lucky and have that from the get-go, and other students, might not have that or ever find their specific teacher that kind of speaks to them. But yeah.
I no doubt I have seen his students in competitions, and they were just all of them stellar. Bryce, can you share with us what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a young ballet student? This is an important question to share with all young students today.
Yeah, I that's a great question. So my biggest challenges were I said kind of previously mentioned I started late. So with that being the factor, there was a lot of extra work that needed to be put up front. I was in a lot of ways the underdog always in my classroom settings in comparison to my peers. I knew that the work never could stop. I would go home, I would practice, I would stretch. I lacked a lot of flexibility as a young child. And so flexibility was a thing I was always, striving further to achieve in. I always had a natural sense of athleticism, but it was more of the quality and execution to detail in combination with not just being strength, but also finding that perfect yin and yang balance between flexibility and strength, which, a lot of students, as I'm sure either are on one end or the other. And sometimes you'll find that perfect amalgamation of both. But I was more so on the strength end of things. So I needed to find a little bit more delicacy within my work, refine And what I love so much about, Vaganova and Bolshoi training is the attention to detail from top of the head to the tip of the toes. So it was guiding my focus, learning the terminology, knowing how to execute, where weight needed to be placed. There was a lot of challenges with that. Between, going home at night, continuing my work, to even showing up a couple minutes or an hour prior to the start of class to reinvest in that work process, just to make sure corrections were solidified. And again, ballet's in a completely different language as a whole. So also learning that end of things and trying to remember what quasi, en face, and éphase say, and differentiating those three were another huge component of trying to work upon. So took a lot of time, but we're here now.
I always tell my students actually ballet early training, foundational training, it's very much like an academic class. You do have to remember them and you have to go through them and you have to put that in your muscle memory and treat it like academic classes. And I think my experience when I teach students this way certainly helps them. They change their mindset toward dance. How did winning scholarships and placements at prestigious programs influence your path in ballet?
Well, getting the acknowledgement of, receiving, placements at certain competitions and also receiving scholarships at prestigious programs instilled that fire that in me, that there is a career for me in the future. There are people that see me, even though yes, I might not be as refined as the student next to me, but there is potential. And knowing that people believed in my overall potential further instilled that passion and dedication of trying to become not just the underdog, but the top of the class. So that's really what was the biggest influence between competitions and getting acceptance at prestigious summer intensives. But yeah, if I hadn't had those experiences, again, I don't know where I would necessarily be at. I would feel I would lose, I would lose the interest as a whole, or feel like, maybe this isn't right for me. Maybe this isn't my path.
It's a community, it's the encouragement, it's the affirmation of you're doing something, you're not alone. And I think this have something to say of being a male student. I do believe in our industry to be a male ballet student, I face a particularly a little bit more different challenges, I do have to say. For some schools, a lot of schools, that particular male student is the only male in the whole school. So where do this particular student to gain the confidence, I don't want to say acknowledgement, but to find a community that work as hard and face the same type of challenges, for them have a weekend together, let's say, go to competitions, and you're in the dressing room and you're on stage, you're at the warm up, you're at the master classes, to see a group of students at your age work hard on the same goal. And I think that's significant, particularly for male students. That's significant because in America, there's so many schools, there is that one or two boys. That's the only male in that school. And I think they face a different type of challenges, and it deserves different type of support. And I think we need to pay a little bit more attention. That's why Brace brings up to later on, we're going to talk about your program, which is dedicated to give that support and give that encouragement, and particularly the knowledge and the technique they need to succeed in a school like that. So I'm very interested to hear what you have to offer to our male students a little bit later on. Um, I want to ask you, reflecting on your journey from discovering dance at age 12 to becoming a demi-soloist with Colorado Ballet, what advice would you give to aspiring dancers who are just starting their own dance journeys?
Yeah, that's the biggest piece of advice, regardless whether you started like myself relatively late, or if you started from the beginning, to remain in that mindset of being a sponge within the classroom setting, absorbing every second you can, both in terms of not just corrections, waiting on the corrections for yourself as an individual, but listening in on the corrections that you hear your teachers providing to the other fellow students. I think the more that we maintain that sort of process, the easier it is to get to our overarching goals. I know typically myself, when I was even in certain moments when I was younger, I would not per se zone out, but I would just, when I would hear my teacher giving other corrections to other students in the class, I would be like, oh, well, that's not applicable to me. I must be good at that certain element. When in fact, there's nothing in ballet, any artist still to this day that has perfected every single element of ballet, and keeping that mindset of staying and remaining as a student, not just in your academic years, but additionally into your professional years as well. That is what has helped me reach my 11th season with Colorado Ballet and reach my goals that I've had been able to, and be able to, experience the different types of works and choreographers and getting these opportunities within my company is my willingness to accept corrections, really master and apply them to the actual choreography or to the project that we are working on. And I think that's a great motto to take in any course of life. The more that you stay in the mindset as a student, the more successful you will end up becoming, and the more humble you will also be in the entire process.
Just the beauty of learning, just constant, just learning. I wish, Bryce, I wish I can go back to student right now after being a teacher. I tell you, like, that's advice I give to you. Seriously, enjoy it, embrace it, because one day you're already a teacher. I see you teaching videos. You're a great teacher. I like how you teach with the details and everything, yeah, and you explain, which is I appreciate very much. But once you truly full time on the other side, there were so many times I was like, just let me go back as a dancer or as a teacher or as a student. I can do so much better. That's how I think, because the beauty of learning, it's just beautiful. And I treasure those days that when I was in school, actually just learned. Somebody teach me. Let me just learn.
And that's, you made a great point. It's not just in a professional setting, but as a teacher, you are a student yourself. You're learning the entire time, working with various students, different ways of approaching the same goal or the same correction with a slightly different tailored approach that is better applicable to that individual student. I have a background, or I have a degree in elementary education. One of the biggest factors that I learned with that degree is not every student learns the same. Some students are more visual, some students are more kinesthetic. It just is completely dependent on the each and individual student needs. And you yourself, and to any other teacher, you're going to be a better teacher if you can readjust and recalibrate your instruction as a whole. And it allows for more, I don't know, more of a journey, more of a process that's more engaging and fun each and every day, instead of feeling like, oh, I have to teach another class today and I have 6 hours today. It makes those 6 hours or however long go by like that. So
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Bryce, I want to switch gear to your professional journey, because you are a teacher and also a dancer at the same time. So we're going to dig a little deeper into your professional as a dance artist. So what was the journey like for you joining Colorado Ballet, and how has your experience evolved over your 11 seasons with the company? Now, I want to mainly talk about your artistic experiences in dancing, both dancing classical and contemporary roles, and work with choreographer like Killian and the Thought. And can you just share some of that moments with us?
yeah, again, something that's beautiful about ballet dancers is we have several different chapters in our life. We have our chapter as a student, then we have our chapter as a professional dancer, and then we have what happens next after you retire. And my chapter that I'm still working on and still living in with my professional setting has been quite an experience. I started off, with this company and studio company at 17, or just turned 17, and I did 2 years of studio company, and by the end of my second year, I wasn't 100% certain whether or not I was going to be able to call Colorado Ballet my home and whether I was going to be brought on into the main company. So I was auditioning around and kind of, assuming that I need to, well, hope for the best, but expect the worst, plan for the worst. So I was auditioning around, and then it was our last rep of my second season was coming around. It was Ballet Masterworks, and I had the opportunity of learning or understudying Brook Violin Concerto. And the night prior to our opening night performance, there was a fellow company dancer, male dancer, that ruptured his Achilles tendon. And it was a completely different spot, but they picked me. They were like, "Hey, we need to teach you his spot." And I had like probably an hour rehearsal to learn a entirely different spot, and then be ready to perform that evening. And at the end of the actual weekend of shows, my director, Gil, brought me out or kept me on stage and kept the entire company on stage and announced that I would be promoted into the company, which was a crazy way to close the first chapter of my professional career. It was a surreal moment to know that all my hard work over the past 2 years and the worry, the stress had all paid off. And then as I was into the company, I had many, many experiences, both kind of in my earlier years. I was able, and you're familiar with Septime Weber, but Septime Weber's Alice in Wonderland. I was able to perform as Tweedledee and Tweedledum my first apprentice year. And that was a great opportunity to kind of put forth my artistic abilities, as well as what I was able to execute in terms of a more hefty role that wasn't core specific. And then kind of moving forward, I kind of continue to get more opportunities inserted and kind of testing my abilities as a whole. Nutcracker Prince, which was in our production a very meaty role within the Nutcracker, and being able, having a 32 show run definitely showed my ability and consistency. And then venturing on, I started to see more opportunities kind of being promoted because, again, the biggest thing that I reminded myself is to stay humble, to stay learning, to stay, even if you think you deserve an opportunity, not to assume such, because you're just going to either lead yourself to frustration or down a wrong path mentally. So I kind of reminded myself that opportunities will arise, and when they do, we'll be ready to take them on, just how I kind of initially got hired into the company. And as of recently, I've been getting even more opportunities over the past 2-3 years, more opportunities within principal work and soloist work. And it's nice seeing that they know that they can trust me, rain or shine, whether I need to be put in last second or if I'm in the room from the first rehearsal. I had the opportunity this past season I was first cast in Benno in our Swan Lake, and then we transitioned into Nutcracker, and I had plenty of opportunities within Nutcracker, as most men do. And moving forward in Jekyll and Hyde, Val Caniparoli's, I had the opportunity of learning Dr. Jekyll and performing Robert Louis Stevenson in that. It's just been an amazing experience getting all of these various opportunities, and again, not letting myself, kind of being as well-rounded as possible in terms of a dancer, not being formulated specifically as only the individual that can do classical work or only the individual that can do character or contemporary work, but trying to round myself off as much as possible and taking inspiration from my fellow company dancers of how to better myself off in classical work or contemporary or artistry. So yeah, that's been the journey, and it has been a surreal journey nevertheless. It's been very, very fun and adventureful.
From what I hear, one quality I think, Bryce, you have, I just wanted to disseminate a little bit what you said, especially to our younger students. Consistency. This is my favorite quality, truly. It's one of my favorite quality in everything, consistency. And from the way you promoted to full company member, it's because you were ready, Bryce. When opportunity comes, you were able to learn, put yourself on stage less than an hour. It means that you were pay attention in the rehearsal. You did not messing around in the side on your phone when you're supposed to learn as a third or fourth cast. So this is what I always tell the young people, you have to be ready. When the opportunity comes, first you have to recognize this is my chance to advance. This absolutely, you have to grab it. This is my chance. Second, from the mind to the body, you have to ready for the role. And this is, I think your story is a classic story, how young people ever advance in their journey. It's always through something unexpected. So when the beautiful things, the unfortunate for the dancer was injured, it's an unfortunate thing, but that opens up an opportunity for young dancers. So the key question, the answer is you have to be ready for it. And so moving on, Bryce, as a demi-soloist, you have had an opportunity to perform various roles. Can you share some of your most memorable, personally significant performance with us?
Yeah. Let's see here. Probably the two most significant ones that I kind of hold on to was last season. We did Ben Stevenson's Cinderella, and yeah, such a fun. I had the opportunity of doing both Jester and one of the stepsisters. I was the younger or smaller, more shy stepsister, and I love having a good time, and I love having a good time on stage, and really diving deep within a character and being able to explore that, and hearing the audience's reaction was a surreal time. And but also being able to completely flip the script and switch over to Jester, which is also still having fun, but there's a very meaty variation within it, and the entire start of that second act, you're nonstop. There's not a second where you have a chance to step off on stage and kind of catch your breath. You are nonstop going. And in regards to stamina and endurance, that was definitely put on the forefront, which made it exciting. The second opportunity that is most notable to me just happened. I had the opportunity of doing the principal role in Balanchine's Rubies, which I, formerly being with winter term at School of American Ballet, I always had a huge appreciation for most of Balanchine rep, if not every rep that I've seen. And being able to perform that really allowed myself to kind of have an ode back to my SAB days. And also, that's a iconic and a bucket list ballet, I think, for a lot of dancers. It is so fun, it is so enjoyable, and it's just about having a good time kind of deal with the boys, and kind of that third movement, that final movement. But yeah, those are a couple of the most notable and memorable mementos that I've kept in my back pocket and will for years.
We all have our favorite choreographers, right? We all have those pieces that I looking back in my career, and really there was a handful of choreographers. It's kind of transformative experience when you're working with them, and the minute they walk into the room, there's something. Nacho Dorado was one of the person for me, and I think when he started walking into the studio and showing us a couple steps, this is something you don't see every day, right? You just take it back. So that was significant when I saw just Mr. Dorado just kind of mocking few things. It's just like, okay, got it, you are the master. So so you have worked with renowned choreographers like Yuri Killian and Twyla Thorpe. And how have those unique artistic visions influence your approach to dance?
Yeah, I mean, how you said it is the exact same way that I would phrase it. It's when they walk into the room, when they walk into the space, you're kind of, it's a shell shock feeling. You don't know 100% what is going to happen. You don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know how intense they are going to be or how meticulous they are going to be, but you're willing and accepting of regardless which way the path takes you. And that was my experience with first off working on Petite more when we had some of the repetiteurs. out from Yuri Killian's trust, setting that. And it was a surreal experience. I thought of myself as, being a strong, having a very strong contemporary background, but I remember how meticulous he was, this repetiteur, setting Petit More about just the quality of how we hold our hands, and like not having the same sort of not tension, but the same sort of classical line within our, just even how we hold our hands, but having somewhere in between, not pedestrian, but not classical, but somewhere in between. And I remember him, like my middle finger was here, and he would be like, nope, it needs to be here. Pull it down just a little bit. And he could see those tiny, tiny hairline nuances where I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, there's no way an audience member is going to be able to like see this or acknowledge the difference between it. But what I loved so much about that is because there was a right way and it was black and white. There was a wrong and a right way. And what I wanted to do is make sure everything in terms of execution of movement was done the correct way, was done the way that it was desired, and the initial inception of what Yuri created the piece around. Twyla Tharp is a completely different entity in terms of comparison of Yuri Killian's work, but there's a lot of similarities again in terms of quality of movement, what her vision was as a whole. And her work is both, I would always stem it from like, it feels like a marathon. Whenever I'm doing anything Twyla Tharp related, it feels like a nonstop train, and I just got to keep going, but also remind myself that there's an aesthetic and approach that we have to make sure that we're executing upon. And doing 9 Sinatra songs, vastly different than Celts, for example, but they both had their different quality of movement, and it was cool watching the differences between both pieces. And we had, prior to the pandemic, we were just starting to set in the upper room, which we're very happy to be bringing back for this upcoming season. So talking about a stamina based piece, that is a rough piece, but I'm very, very much looking forward to it in that same respect.
One of my favorite pieces, though, it's kind of like being baptized kind of thing after you finish it. It's just like, okay. But those experiences are shape who we are as professional dancers, who we are. And I think Suzanne Farrell once said, who we are as artists and as people, as human, is very much shaped by those dances we danced. Because I do believe I will be, and I think you are too, will be somewhat different people. We're a different person if we hadn't had the experience we had. So when you work with those masters, when you did the rubies, and then when later on you could do in the upper room, I do believe at the end of it, the journey, somewhat we are a little bit different from when we started. I do believe that. In what ways do you feel your experiences working with such esteemed choreographers have contributed to your growth and development as a dancer, as an artist? So this is what we actually talk about, but a little bit different. This is talking about not necessarily pieces, but in working relationship with them, how they communicate with you. How does that have anything to do with how you are communicating with your students today?
There's no question. As a dancer, you start into a company with a baseline set of tools in your tool bag, as I'd like to say. And every opportunity that you get working with a new piece, working with a new choreographer, repetiteur, you get an extra tool put into your tool bag that later on prepares you for the next task or adventure at hand. So that's one component that I would have to mention in terms of every opportunity, every chance to work, move differently, has allowed my abilities in the future to be further ready for any sort of challenges that I might face. How I would address or tackle Petit More moving forward versus how I did the first time is drastically different now. I kind of understand the processes and the ideas, and additionally, the work that is needed to be put forth, and also a sense of maturity also changes the way in which you execute things in that same respect. Um, but in terms of teaching, these tools again, I'm allowed to pass on to my own students. I can utilize examples of reflecting on these experiences that I've had in my career and explain to a student that might not understand why I am presenting a certain obstacle, but I provide that experience that I have had as the reason why we are doing this, why we are going over this again, why we are building up stamina, why I'm making you do 64 changements on a very slow tempo a couple times, is so when you get that opportunity that I've experienced, you're not coming into it ill-equipped like I did, but you're coming into it more equipped, if anything. As teachers, I think it is our mission and our goal to take every lesson that we have experienced, every moment we have had where it's been a trial or tribulation, and to provide our instruction based around not letting our student potentially to face that same challenge, but to have a better way and a better moment of how to attack it, how to address that challenge as a whole. And I think that's an important quality as a teacher. Should want your students to be better dancers than you yourself were.
And to add to that, having danced those wonderful pieces and working with those wonderful repertoire and choreographers, and it really provides you with the conviction to teach the correct way because you have to get them prepared, right? That's why in classroom we talk about the details because ballet is detailed. Ballet, there is an absolutely sense of wrong and right. So if we don't introduce these kind of elements in the classroom, they're not going to be understanding the industry. They're not going to be understanding the art form and what is laid ahead of them. Looking ahead, what are some of your aspirations or goals as a dancer, both in terms of the roles you hope to perform and the artistic challenges that you wish to explore further? Because you're a demi-soloist. You got a long way to go, Bryce.
I do. Man, that's a really tough question because, obviously I would say, well, my goal is to dance, Romeo and Juliet. My goal is to, be, the principal role in each, production that is passed our way. But in that same respect, I do know that we choreograph and we cast a ballet on an who looks best sort of approach, or who fits this identity of this individual character or role best. And so I can't, outright say one piece over the other. I am more so from a position of not I have to dance this before I retire, but I I am just accepting and happy about any opportunity that I receive. Um, I think, so I can't necessarily pinpoint a specific, cast or a specific role that I must do before I retire. But another thing is my goals and aspirations are definitely to achieve soloist, and then who knows, again, principal from then on. But I would be more than content with my life just being a soloist in that same respect. But obviously, I have bigger goals and desires than that. I'm completely fine if that's kind of where I stop with my career. Now, with what is going on in terms of my teaching side of things, I have also grown further appreciation for that platform as well as a whole. So I'm 28 now, just turned 28. So I do have a lot of life to live, especially as a ballet dancer. And I'm ready to face, whatever the path is moving forward, and remind myself that, whatever happens, happens. You are not the predictor, and you can't, the more that you kind of relax and enjoy the moment and enjoy what's happening now and not what could happen later, the more rewarding it is as a whole, and fulfilling. So,
You're 28, so the advice, if you may, I can give you is dance as long as you can, Bryce. Just enjoy every opportunity, to just enjoy a dancer's life. It is precious just because all career expectancy is low, is short. And for a 28-year-old, in other aspects of profession, you're just starting way up. But for us, you are getting up there in terms of what? In terms of your experiences. So enjoy it because you worked so hard to get there, right? So I encourage you dance as long as you could because dancing is giving. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a service. It's giving yourself to the audience and to inspire others. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. And what do you think? Talk about your company now. What do you think sets Colorado Ballet apart as a company, and how has been a part of that organization contributed to your growth as a dancer, and I want to say as a person?
Yeah. I think what sets Colorado Ballet apart from other companies is our due diligence about keeping the heritage or tradition with storybook ballets and performing such as that, but also still finding cutting edge new work in that same respect. Like, just as a perfect example, we had a world premiere of Lauren Lovett choreography done by Lauren Lovett this past April. So opportunities like that is what I really appreciate. The overall direction and the way in which the artistic staff leads us, I think, is very important and very vital. Where I know and I've heard through colleagues and friends that they might not have that same clarity and with their artistic staff. The other thing is we are very united within my company. There is not a lot of hostility. We are all, we see each other, yes, as coworkers, but we also see each other as brother and sisters in a lot of ways. We are a big family, and we are here to inspire one another and support one another. And we even feel that through the staff as well. The staff cares so much for us, whereas I do know for a lot of dancers out there, the staff treats them maybe more like a workhorse sort of approach where it's, do your job, you got to keep your head down. I don't care if you're injured, you got to still be out on stage. You have to. Where our company, our artistic staff is very much about caring about the well-being of us as a whole. And additionally, with that, the well-being of us in the future in life. We have like a career transition fund that is supported by Colorado Ballet that helps support us on our next endeavors in life. Additionally, what I love so much about this company that sets us apart is, yes, when new dancers step in, they provide them opportunities, especially if they're worthy of such, but they also pay a homage and respect to the seniority within the company. And they're very much on a seniority-based level in terms of how they, approach casting and everything of that sort. But still, of course, quality is the most important thing, making sure we're putting the correct product and the best product out there. But you never feel like your toes are getting walked on. Or I hear all the time, man, I've been here for 6 years, and this person who's been here for, this is their first season, or getting casted over me. That doesn't happen too much within our company, which is obviously great. So yeah, that's one thing I would have to say that has inspired me about caring more so about myself and well-being, but also supporting my colleagues and, creating a kinship with everybody in terms of, the staff and dancers alike.
Yes, I agree with you. That structure and clarity provide the comfort for the company, and I think the dancers, especially I think ballet companies, needs that kind of structure and clarity. And the ballet company can run more professionally, I think, if there is a layered system there. And because the ballet, let's say, all ballet works, contemporary and classical, has the layer of whether you're a quarter ballet, you're soloist, you're principal. And I think with a company structured in ranks similar to that, it it really puts the responsibility on you as a soloist because that's what the company expects you to perform as a soloist. And I think that's a responsibility aspect of it, and which is I really think it's really appropriate, really great. And you are working with some of the best experienced, the best people. I know Mr. Box when he was a dancer in American Ballet Theater, unbelievable dancer, and I'm so happy to see him thrive and in the leadership role. And I'm very happy for the company and for the dancers, everything. Um, Bryce, let's talk about the male dance connection. And so tell us what was the mission and of founding the male dance connection? What was the first thing you thought about? Let me have something like this. What triggered that urge?
Yeah, what really created this idea was built one around, I had been teaching for years prior to this inception, but the pandemic played a huge portion of that, watching my classes switch to an online setting. And kind of, obviously the pandemic, we didn't know how long it was going to be. We could, it could be, in an indefinite amount of time where we were teaching on Zoom. So getting more comfortable and noticing that classes can still be served and provided on an online setting and platform, and students could still grow and achieve their goals, was the first initial inception about this entire platform. And then I kind of, as I was working with, as I was working online with my local studios here, I had seen numerous studios that are well recognized and colleagues of mine across the world start teaching online as a whole and starting their own projects and providing, students with quality education. Yourself, in fact, actually. And kind of through that entire experience and observing such, I was like, one thing that I remember myself as a student, I had this, somewhat hidden component of myself feeling isolated and not feeling like I was doing the right thing because of what the rest of the world was saying outside of the dance world. Men shouldn't be, doing ballet. That's meant for girls, or something along those lines. And I felt very isolated. And even being at a studio with, one or two guys, it felt like we were outsiders even within our own studio setting. There was obviously, we were primarily dominated by, females in the classroom, but it felt isolating. I felt lost, but it was through the experience of competitions, summer intensives, where I would then see this exposure of all these other boys, and I was like, wow, this is great. Now I feel like I'm part of something. I feel like there is something here. So I wanted to change that idea. I wanted to be a platform where students and male students of any age, of any desire within ballet, not to ever feel like an outsider or to feel isolated within their own studio setting. I wanted to create a space that was building camaraderie. But I additionally wanted to create a space that was further promoting their successes or helping achieve their overall successes. And whether, in a lot of cases, there's not a ton of male instructors, ballet instructors out in the world. And sometimes with a lot of the students that approach us, they are lacking that male specific technique. And their teachers have even, outright have said, I don't know how to instruct. I don't know, necessarily how to correct or, help a single tour en l'air or a soda basque. I never had to work on that, so that's not something. So I knew that there was a need across the world in a lot of ways to provide that support system. And obviously having the luxury of being online as well as in person, but being mainly focusing online, we could work with anybody at any point in time in any part of the world on a need be per basis. And I realized we could be almost like if you're struggling in math, you hire a tutor. We could be that tutor. We could be, online supplemental support. That's why we're not a brick and mortar. That's not why we don't have, a traditional studio setting. We are here to only aid and support and help guide these students to reach their overall goals. So that was the mission, and that was the founding of why I started this organization as a whole. And it has truly blossomed more than I could even anticipate. I didn't know. It was kind of more so just on a, it was fun. I love teaching and I love meeting new people and working with new families. But additionally, the other component about this entire thing that is very important is there are a lot of parents out there of male students that don't know much about ballet and don't know who to ask in regards to, tights, ballet shoes, costumes, makeup. And I wanted to also be a resource for the parents as well, to provide them the knowledge and the support that they needed. I've seen so many Facebook forums and groups out there about, parents with boys who are dancers, and it's kind of a back and forth. Here's this is what we tried. It helped our student. And my mom was even a part of some of those forums younger with my brother and I. And sometimes they were great advice, other times it wasn't great. And I wanted to provide great advice across any platform, regardless of, this is more recreational for my son, or he wants a professional track with this entire project. So that's where we started on.
It's a service you provide. It's a mentorship to two male students at some of the very critical time of their learning journey. And then regardless ballet or anything else, it's just the attitude of learning. I have, through my program, either online program and in-person program, we encountered male students throughout my organization, Inception. Then it's to provide me the greatest satisfaction, joy. I meet them in competitions, to see them just thriving. And, I can't help to feel like, what, I contribute a little bit of that, right? I contributed not just to that student, but to that family as well. And I pat them on the shoulder, say, you're doing well. And you don't need it to overwhelm them, let them take the time. As boys take a little bit more time. And but it is a great service you provide, and is also, to me, it's much needed. And as boys in ways are shy. I believe that, because they're much more internalized. They don't want to share the issues. But I went to ballet school before I was 10, so I was one of them. There's a lot of questions. I'm sure you did too. I mean, we have a complex thoughts and questions all the time, but we never really have the courage to burst out. We never really have the moments. Let me have my moment. Let me share my vulnerability. We always have to keep strong. We always have to keep it together. But with a safe space, with a safe coach, and you can provide a lot. You can guide them. You can give them guidance.
That's so beautiful, Runqiao. I think, again, part of my desires for this organization is to not allow any of my students to feel like there isn't a space for them to feel emotional and to feel like willing to open up. And I think as an artist, I think it is so important. You have to open up. If you don't open up, then how are you connecting appropriately with, Albrecht, for example? Being able to tap into your emotions as an artist is incredibly important. And being able to do that in a safe space is very important. I think there's there's a big connotation out there in the world where the men have to be strong. They can't shed a tear. They can't have this mindset of being weak. And, yes, naturally we are stronger than our female counterparts speaking physically, but emotionally, we lack that same degree of strength. And I think it's very important providing a platform where young boys feel like they have a voice, feel like they can say what, issues might be occurring and how they might be handling certain things, because being a teenager, it's challenging. It is. There's an influx of emotions, and it's, you need to be able to express your feelings. And that's part of the reason why I loved and ended up selling, or ballet was so huge and impactful to me, is because I could be in touch with my emotions. I could, still have the athleticism and strength, the feeling of strength each and every day in classwork setting. And additionally, the general friendly competition culture that is also cultivated with, I need to be the best one today in class. I need that acknowledgement from my teacher, from my peers. So yeah, that's very well said.
What are some of the unique aspects of or features of the male dance connection that set it apart from other dance training programs, Bryce? What is the
Yeah,
uniqueness about it? You share with us a little bit about that.
yeah.
Can you go a little further about it?
Yeah, the unique components about this organization is, obviously on the forefront, we're, male dancer specific training, the mentorship on each component of that, both in terms of physicality, but also spiritually speaking, the education and resources that we provide to parents, and obviously students and guidance in those forefronts. But for the future, being able to be that online tutor, being able to provide education and to students that feel behind, that know that they need to catch up. Providing that service is one of the unique components of what we do. Obviously, being on a Zoom setting, I can teach at any point in time and anywhere in the world and have that flexibility. But additionally, what I have also noticed with teaching on Zoom is it requires a specific need from the students a little bit more. It requires them to be really internal and think about physically what they are feeling within their body. And the more that we as teachers promote how to properly engage and where to feel that engagement from within our body throughout class, the easier it is to replicate, like riding a bicycle in that same capacity. And that's what's really unique about teaching on Zoom, is you don't have the luxury of one learning the combination or copying the combination from the student next to you. So you have to be diligent
Right.
about learning the combinations on your own. And a lot of boys tend to struggle with that.
March others, yeah.
Yeah, tend to have some issues with that. So it promotes that, but it also promotes the fact that they really have to internalize what they're feeling, which, not just looking at the mirror and saying, okay, does that shape look right, and forcing themselves into certain positions rather than finding the positions correctly with the correct technique in mind. Anybody can crank turnout, but cranking turnout does not mean you are holding correct turnout. That does not mean that it is anatomically speaking the way it should be executed, and thus will transfer over into center work. So those are some components and features that are incredibly unique about this platform. But additionally, it's about connecting students from all parts of the nation together. That is a huge component. I know I've spoke to 4 or 5 of my students just this past week, and they're all going to the same summer intensive. And they
Yeah.
don't necessarily know one another per se, but I've mentioned to them, I was like, hey, he is going here and they're going here and you guys are all going to be at the same place together. And one thing that you do, even though you are going to feel like an outsider for those first couple of days, everyone else is going to feel like that. But one thing you do have that the rest do not is you have the connection with us and the relationship with us. And that's something you can initially ice break a conversation with and kind of start, your kinship and friendship throughout your summer courses. So that's another huge, unique component about this platform and program. But it's being able to serve quality
Yeah.
education at any point in the day.
You mentioned a word I wanted to reiterate a little bit. You you describe yourself as a tutor. That's really beautiful. Because in academic world is when you try to catch up something or you want to get ahead, you hire a tutor. So in all business, every teacher wants to coach the award-winning students. Who wouldn't want to coach a beautiful student, go out there and do phenomenal in YGP? Who doesn't want that? But those are the minorities. Those are the tip of the pyramid. Who's going to serve the base of the pyramid? Who's going to serve the middle part of the pyramid? Because that requires extra attention, patience, teachers. And that's the base. The majority of the students belong to. Look at the shape of the pyramid. And your service, you specifically said you wanted to help some of the students to addressing some of the issues might not be taken care of in other aspect of their learning. And that's where you put yourself into the position as a tutor to addressing these issues. It's a tedious work, Bryce. I know. So I kudos to you that willing to play that role of teaching the base of the pyramid.
Well, and that, Runqiao, I mean, as you just said, I in myself in a lot of ways was always the base of that pyramid. I was never on the top of that pyramid, my fellow students or my fellow colleagues and classmates were. So in a lot of ways, Dimitri, though, nevertheless, still gave his time to me, and both in our privates, but also additionally in class. But a lot of the times with other teachers, and I was never their main focus. And I knew how that made me feel at certain times. And I want to give those students the chance and opportunity for success. And I've even have noticed, I mean, sometimes the ones that are at the top that are in that minority group will, they might get a job opportunity, but because they're at that minority group for so long at the top of that pyramid, once they get into a company, they're not anymore. They're more they start off at the base of that pyramid, and a lot of them, even though that their trajectory of success was very high as a student, tends to get diminished because they're now not getting the same accolades and same attention anymore from the artistic staff. And I believe in a lot of ways the students that are at that base of that pyramid tend to have the longer careers. Fabrice Camel's former principal dancer with Joffrey told my brother, sister, and I at one point in time that being a principal dancer has less, or achieving that status has less to do with being necessarily the most talented in the room. It is more of a marathon than it is a sprint. And the more that we recognize and understand that it is a marathon, that it is what you do, and as you mentioned earlier, consistency, what you do each and every single day is the determining factor of where you're going to become at the end of your career, is the huge component. So I am the if you will, I'm team captain of the underdogs, and I'm here to serve all of the underdogs in the world, and that's my goal and vision.
Yes, and you have the best of both worlds because you have the experience and knowledge of climbing up. You have the strength and knowledge of how do you do it, and you actually succeeded, right? So you have the feedback you give it makes that much more valuable. Wonderful. Just to elaborate a little bit, I'm interested to see your understanding and your organization. In what ways do you believe the male dance connection has helped address the unique challenges and opportunities faced by male dancers in the dance industry? So you covered quite a bit of that, but I think this question is more focused on the unique challenges. What are those challenges that you faced or your experience with the students that you've been working with? Because every year is different. I believe that. Season different.
It's the unique challenges faced with the students that come forth to us. And to reiterate, a lot of them tend to come from, only boy in my studio, to I have been underserved in my classes and I'm behind, or I'm not getting the same sort of opportunities in the Nutcracker or spring or summer showcases. So it's working with students that feel already underserved or know that they're underserved and trying to promote their confidence. You have to be confident stepping into a ballet class. You have to be willing to, yes, take risks, but be mindful of what risks you are taking. and be willing to, adjust accordingly and be vulnerable and accepting of critique. So, in a lot of ways, I've had students that maybe haven't received the same degree of attention that I'm passing on to them, and they have, responded like, "Man, Mr. Bryce is really, really on me. Like, I don't know if like he doesn't believe in me or if he's just like I'm just not good enough." But I have to explain that ballet is very unique in the respect that we thrive when a teacher feels like a student, trying to achieve a student's successes. It's based around the idea of what are your weaknesses and addressing those weaknesses and putting those weaknesses on the forefront. But again, it's also about delivery of those weaknesses, about not discouraging a student about what you're not still yet better in per se, but what you need to continue to improve upon. But teaching that component to a student that might have never, had corrections given to them, or maybe got a correction and then it was never reapplied or kind of, checked back in. Are you, you're still not, properly holding turnout from this area. So there's a lot of unique components and challenges that I am faced with, but the biggest thing that I always strive to achieve is reminding that I need to treat my students as if I'm their bigger brother. I need to support them, love them, care for them, but also, hey, you're getting out of line. Let's correct it in this regard. Let's address it in this capacity. So it creates a degree of trust between my students and myself, but additionally, acceptance for critique, acceptance for, inspiring growth.
Criticism is a part of love. It's a part of support. And that's what teachers do. That's what we do. But what you said was very beautiful is how do you deliver those corrections? And as we talked about it before, male student in the classical ballet form always is pushed and encouraged to be strong, right? So you follow the double toe, do it again. We're gonna have to make this work before the end of the day. Sort of, sometimes it's almost like become for us. So we kind of need to sit back and it's just for that child, for that student of that day. And also look at this variation we do. Listen to the music. It's always so strong. It's a showcase its ability. It showcases its strength. And but teachers have a tendency to carry it away with the way we talk to them. And after a while, they shut down, right? They start protective the layer of themselves. So this is where I feel that sometimes we feel students not responding to the corrections or they're not upholding the corrections. So what you said there was very nice. Actually, you recognize how do you deliver criticism, and which is a huge component of the teaching. What do you hope participants will gain from their experience with the male dance connection, both artistically and personally?
Yeah. Well, obviously, whatever my students' desires are, whether that's I'm doing this because I want to better myself. I'm a commercial dancer, and I know that ballet is the foundation of all forms of dance. So I want to better my technique. So I have, further opportunities into my professional career, or uncertain, like a path of, I don't know if I want to become a dancer, but I definitely am passionate about this currently. Or even to the students that on the other end of the spectrum that want this as a professional career. My goal is to help guide them, support them, and for all of their endeavors, regardless whether that is recreationally based or more professional based. And even to the students that are uncertain, it's to help guide them out of that uncertainty and allow them to make their own decision, but to remind them if their uncertainty is based around the ideas of, well, I started so late, so, yes, in theory, I would love it. I would love a career, but I just don't know how achievable that is at this point in my life, is to remind them that if you have the correct dedication, consistency, hard work, and determination, it is without a doubt achievable. You just have to believe it in yourself. And that starts again with the teacher believing in their student.
Yes.
And when the student feels that the teacher believes in them, they then are able to grow that belief in themselves.
It's tremendous. The energy is tremendous.
It's so important how you conduct yourself as a teacher from start to finish in a classroom setting, and even outside of a classroom setting. How you approach your students is really dependent on their successes. And we have to be constantly encouraging and supportive and, critical, but it's critical from a place of love and care. So yeah, I want whatever my students desire in their heart, I want them to be able to achieve, and not to feel like the obstacles that are in their way are, consistent or are going to be impossible to defeat. I want them to be able to defeat those obstacles and get past whatever, potential issues might come their way.
Wonderful. Looking ahead, Bryce, what are your goals and aspirations for the future of the Male Dance Connection, and how do you envision the program evolving in coming years?
So my goals, there's quite a few. Obviously, it starts with building a better sense of community with male dancers and fellow male dancer families and parents. But additionally, my goals are to get rid of the stigma that is based around being a male dancer within the United States. I think there is in a lot of more rural areas where it's not necessarily as accepted. Additionally, though, my goals are to eventually have several brick and mortar actual locations that will host events that will, and in the same respect, male dancers typically are awarded scholarships in some regard. So having a nonprofit sector that can help either fund their goals and aspirations for joining different year-round programs, but additionally, supporting their own needs within our own organization. So between, having brick and mortar locations, having several events happening and occurring both in, within the States, but as well as, outside of the States, that is one goal. Another thing is having potentially an actual convention, so to speak, where we bring in, people to have conversations, professional dancers to have conversations with the students, host, actual classes, master classes, provide, 3 or 4 days events of both, lectures to, master classes to even, having merchandise that is able to be purchased in person, between, ballet shoes to, just general uniform.
That's a fantastic idea. You know how many times we see the commercials, advertisement on social media for ladies' uniforms? Do you ever see it for men?
No.
I've never seen it.
No.
And they need help.
They do. They need the help.
They don't even know how to wear tights, how to wear dance belt. Come on, and because nobody tells them, nobody teaches them.
It's true.
How do you know that if no one tells you? And do you think really a male student is going to ask somebody how to wear a dance belt correctly?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So therefore, you know how many cringe moments I see when as a judge on looking at the student dancing. That student, nobody ever told him how to wear that set of costume. Nobody.
Yeah. And it's important.
They just put something on him. It never fits.
Yeah, never. It doesn't fit. The tights are sagging.
The shoes flies off because they never know how to teach them. They need a coach. They need the support. They need the care.
Yep. It's the amount of times where, I've had a new student join my program, and first class that I see them in, and they're in, full attire, but the attire might not be put together and organized correctly. Yeah, and then I have to have, the awkward call with either the son or the mom later that day, and I'm like, so we need to have a conversation about how to wear a dance belt. And it's never a fun conversation to have, but it's
somebody have to do it.
somebody has to do it, and
Yes.
that's, again, why we're here. We have to explain it, and it's sad and unfortunate that their
Yeah.
teachers weren't able to address that, and again, it potentially, if they were in theory going out to compete and they're not wearing their dance belt correct or their tights are sagging,
Yeah, the
they're going
school
to,
didn't care.
yeah,
It too looks
later
too big.
it's too, yeah, it later might instill um as if the horrific dream that nobody wishes for, or walking out of your house with forgetting to put pants on, and feeling just absolutely embarrassed.
Yeah.
Obviously that's not. So it's important that we know how to wear just the basic fundamentals of gear. And it's the thing, for male dancers in particular, you go to any ballet or dance wear store, they have one small little section within that
Yeah.
store that is specifically for male dancers, and it's probably like two brands and a couple different sizes of tights. And for a parent that doesn't know, they have to go to this section, they're gonna grab what they can or that's in stock that might fit best for them. And um,
I
it's just
know.
unfortunate.
I know. Um, we covered a little bit about your teaching philosophy, throughout this discussion, Bryce, and I think that our audience members and have an idea of you as an educator. You're a great educator. You're a communicator. But everyone has a teaching philosophy, and we want to hear a little bit. And I'm interested to see what is your teaching philosophy, because you have a unique experience. You learned Vaganova-based teaching, but later on you went to SAB for a winter term. I wanted to know a little bit of that. But I want to ask you, this question is related to that. The Bolshoi and Vaganova training methodologies are well respected in the world of the ballet. How do you integrate elements of these methodologies into your teaching, and what benefits do you believe they offer to your students? Because the reason this question is very interesting to me is that those methods really works the best if you teach them when they were little, right? When they teach, that works really works because it's a level based, it's a layered training. Now the challenge you're facing as well as me is that inject the benefit of that beautiful methodology in midway, let's say. How do you do that?
Well, I think the biggest the biggest thing that one I need to start off by saying about Bolshoi and Vaganova based curriculum is one. Well, Bolshoi is very much based around obviously the inception of Vaganova training. What I love about Vaganova and Bolshoi training is one, the strength and stability that it serves, as well as the attention to detail. In terms of port de bras and epaulement, there's nothing in terms of curriculums out there, in my personal opinion, there is nothing comparable in terms of the quality and the degree of how delicate it is, but in the same time respecting the strength and power that it also holds in terms of your lower legs and even how you present yourself. So that is one huge thing that I love so much about these training styles and curriculums. In terms of my influence with Dimitri has promoted that, but getting the experience to dance year round at SAB, obviously neoclassical training, Balanchine training in a lot of ways follows a similar concept and on the initial inception with a student, but at my age where I was at, it was very much more neoclassical stylized, how we position our arms to how we attack certain movement in petit allegro and things like that. It allowed for more of me as an individual artist to learn how to play with music and musicality and how to attack things differently. Whereas, some individuals that are more supportive of Balanchine's work and that style as a whole might say that, Bolshoi or Vaganova is a little bit more sluggish in the attack. as a whole. But I personally disagree as an artist, but I do understand where they might feel in such a way. But I think in terms of my teaching philosophy, having utilized both what I've learned at SAB and what I've learned growing up under Bolshoi curriculum is allowed me to provide again those tools of both being showing and being able to have that explosive and quick musicality that is presented to via neoclassical training, but additionally having the strength, the épaulement, the port de bras that is so expressive and so delicate and beautiful that Bolshoi and Vaganova training also embody. In terms of, what I believe the hardest thing about training a student that is coming to me, midway through their age and not, at 6 or 7, to where we can really start, as you said, injecting this curriculum into them in a slower pace, is trying to take it slow, but not so slow to where that they lose interest. I have a combination, that was originally, from what Dmitry has told me, Peter Pestov passed to him, and Vladimir Malahov, in that same respect, had the exact same combination. I've even seen this iconic picture of him doing it. But it's just we start very simply with any student of any level, an assessment, and we face the bar. It's just simple 4 or 3 battement tendus in first position, 4 counts out, 4 counts in, followed by a 4 count demi-plie, and then switching from side to side, closing both in first and fifth, etc. And what I like about this is it's simple enough to where somebody that doesn't understand what we're trying to create or what we're trying to do is able to execute and tailor and work. But even somebody that is, ready for a professional career is still able to achieve and still find the hard work behind it, because battement tendu, when executed correctly, holding yourself correctly in first position, fifth, regardless, is a challenge. You posted a video the other day discussing about the complications of fifth position and how difficult it is. And it is quite a difficult position, even as a professional. It requires a certain, understanding and bodily awareness to execute correctly. So that's something that can be transferred both to a beginner all the way to an advanced student. And it's knowing how to work on simplistic functionalities, again, on a beginner basis and also on an advanced basis. I try as much as possible to work on technique and execution of technique. And if it's in the instance of a beginner student, then obviously it's teaching the curriculum and teaching the general rubric or terminology, but additionally focusing in on the technique. So it's definitely a juggle. It's a toss-up trying to balance giving instruction, curriculum, terminology, and then also the motor function aspects of it, and finding that consistency with that work. So it's definitely a challenge, and I know you have those same experiences as you've already mentioned.
That's beautiful, and I think every more we teach, more just to be a little bit more clear, the clarity with it, and the simplicity of our task, and how time consuming it is just to do something so simple. The male dance connection summer intensive and the workshops, and I think I love summer intensives because I feel this is a chunk of time we can really utilize to hone in on something, to focus on something without distraction of the academic requirements, academic expectations, and just the other aspects of year-round activities. So summertime, Bryce, I think this is truly your opportunity to contribute for those need that kind of support you provide. Please tell us, the Male Dance Connection offers a summer intensive and workshops for both students and adults. Can you tell us more about these programs and what participants can expect to experience?
Yeah. So starting off with the adult summer intensive, the goals and what we are planning on working. This will happen in Orange County, California, May 25th through the 27th. So over Memorial Day weekend, what we plan on doing is providing that same degree of intensive structure that you would find at a very traditional, summer intensive. Obviously starting off with ballet class every single day, and then having work within contemporary. We're very fortunate to have two different contemporary instructors for this actual 3-day program. We will have conditioning work, which will be hosted by a former dancer that is specific to my brother, actually, provides his conditioning class based around the needs and desires of a dancer in mind. So not developing the wrong types of muscle groups, being very well balanced muscularly speaking. And then we will have variations class, which is, I think, a very important component that a lot of adult students in general do not get the experience. Them taking traditional drop-in classes or open classes, it's just a ballet class and that's that. They don't necessarily get the opportunity of taking a variation and learning it, and then coming back each of one of those days and continuing to perfect and work and correct and be corrected on that variation. So that's one really fantastic component that I do love about this program. The additional factor is, again, creating a sense of community. I can't count how many calls with adult students in regards to this program that have mentioned that they are, the only adult male student in their current, open classes that they're participating in, but the teachers don't necessarily ever provide them combinations that are male specific, and feel like they're, working in that same regard or executing steps as, Joseph Gotti or Ivan Vasiliev or, Derek Dunn or Jeffrey Serio, just to name a couple. And that's, always the desire within them. They want to do double tours from across the floor. They want to work on a soda boss. They want to work on alsacone turns, but they never get those opportunities in their traditional class settings. So that is another component that we are working on. We have a class specifically called Coda class, and it's more or less, in layman's terms, working on all of the intricate and complicated steps that you might experience and find within a traditional coda, within a pas de deux. Obviously the big jumps, the big pirouettes. That's one huge component that we're additionally excited to have. But again, providing a sense of community and connecting people together from across the nation. So that is May 25th through the 27th. And then moving into our student programs, our first one is in Denver, Colorado, June 11th through the 14th. And what they can expect there is a very similar approach to their traditional summer intensive, with the component that this is a smaller actual program as a whole in terms of population size in general. So there's a lot more attention to each individual student and general feedback. We are not here to do a big, massive group, 50 students deep or 40 students deep, but very intimate setting. So one, the students feel more connected to one another, but also they're getting the corrections that they need. But unique to the Denver intensive, we are having partnering each and every day. We are having contemporary, conditioning, obviously ballet class, coda class, and variations, but we're having partnering every day. But we are actually on the third day having we're collaborating with a local school that is dear friends of mine to have like an entire partnering workshop. And both of the owners are husband and wife, former dancer. One was formerly with Royal and Colorado Ballet. Husband was formerly with Barcelona and Colorado Ballet and Boston Ballet even prior years ago to that. So we're excited to have them collaborate with us, bring their girls into the studio, bring their teaching philosophies, and spending like a 2.5-hour class dedicated solely to partnering and the skills within partnering work, because there's a lot of details. And I believe getting different ways of explaining a combination or explaining a correction allow for a better absorption overall of that correction. Sometimes, I remember and reflect to myself, as a younger student, but I would receive a correction from a teacher countless times. The second I heard it from a different teacher, it clicked like that. So I think that's important. So that'll be June 11th through the 14th. And then on the final day, we'll do like a demonstration of the character class, contemporary, maybe a little bit of partnering, and as well as the variation that we had set upon them. So they'll get a full, a very full experience with that. And we're doing a very similar program at the end of August, Labor Day weekend, back in Orange County, California, for a second student workshop. And that's August 30th through September 2nd. Same 6-hour days. Very excited. It's overall, what I love so much about these programs is they're just short enough to where it's financially accommodating to parents to be able to come out and fulfill for their students. But additionally, it either provides them an extra added little support system prior to going to their big summer intensives that they're already signed up for, or post their big summer intensives. And we picked these dates based around that idea about giving them a little extra bump before they go off, a little bit of extra work, a little taste of what they're going to experience potentially at their summer intensives that they're signed up for, or back before their actual, normal year-round program starts back up, get a little bit more of extra work before they get back into the studio setting, and get a second degree of opinions and suggestions, and have the ability to work with different teachers and continue to learn from next to different individuals next to them.
This is actually phenomenal. I'm taking away with two things that I think it is absolutely brilliant, your ideas. One is the CODA class. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I never heard of it before. However, boys do the manège, double tours, and all of the turns after class anyway. That's what we do anyway. So you actually specifically create a room and attention, let them do it safely and in an organized way. I never heard this class. Of course, variation class, never heard of CODA class. And this is, and every part has a CODA. So that's a wonderful idea. And there's specific technique in CODAs that needs to be addressed. Normally, when you have all girls class, you won't have the time let you to do the manège and all of the turns by yourself. Please take advantage I would totally take advantage of this. And how many times do we hear that I wish I had a partnering class before I go to those big intensives, because they have the partnering class, and the ones have the experience, have the prior education, obviously get the better parts. So you are prep them for it if they take your intensive before. So you let them have the base knowledge before they go to those big intensives, which is those classes they expect you know it. I see you teaching online. I see you in your Instagram page that you explain to the students where do they place the hand for the passage. How do they know if you don't teach them? So they wind up injure themselves because the boys will never say, I never learned this before. They will never say it. They will just do it and then hurt themselves. Yes. So, and if they come to you after those intensives, which is reiterate some of the stuff they learned, they didn't really get it. And you can fortify those ideas for them. I think this is truly brilliant. I wish many students take advantage of this. Tailored, and also there is quite a few benefits go to the big community, the big productions and the big summer intensive. But when you go to smaller programs, you actually can have attention. Now, how many times do we hear students come back from their summer intensives? And I ask, what correction did you have? Will the teacher tell you something? None. 0. 5 weeks, I kid you not, 5 weeks go to intensive, not one correction was specifically given, not one. But when they go to smaller organizations, smaller program, they can actually get individual attention. This is moving on. Can you share some highlights or key components of the male dance connections, summer intensive, and a workshop that set them apart from other dance programs. We talk about smaller size. We talk about the new classes that you just invented, Bryce, the Coda class, and a specific 2.5 hour workshop, literally. I love to call it like a special workshop for partnering. What are the components? What are the things that set yourself apart? Because summer intensive coming back, we're out of COVID, coming back with vengeance, right? We all have summer intensive. What set yours apart from others?
Well, in a lot of ways. I mean, it's as we kind of already mentioned on it, but it's the general size. It's also the ability within the fact that it is a little bit smaller and more condensed. That the students are allowed to befriend one another a little bit easier. We additionally, beyond what we do within the studio setting, and we also host like little excursions or extracurricular activities with the kids. The last winter intensive that we had, we took the boys bowling, and then the final day we had like a Dave and Buster's day where they would all kind of hang out and play games together. And it's important to know that when you're in the studio setting, it's a place of church, it's a place of respect. We're there to learn, we're there to educate, we're there to engage within the classroom setting. And then but boys are boys, we have to understand they still desire that social capacity. So providing opportunities outside of the studio setting allows for a little bit more exploration and further kinship with one another. And I think that's very important, especially, prior to going to a summer intensive. Who knows, some of these boys might be going to the same summer intensive. So instead of them entering that summer intensive with not knowing anybody, they have somebody that they met at the Male Dance Connection summer workshop. But additionally, what's again also unique about our program is just every single one of our teachers, their desire is to teach. Their desire is not to show up, give a class, and then walk out and check out. Their desire is to inspire and to provide their passion within that, and in a space that feels safe, that feels ready. For a student that has never experienced a contemporary class or a character class, might have some reservations going into it, or even partnering, will have reservations going into it. But within how we approach the environment, how we set the standard within the classroom setting, allows for the students, one, to let go and to be accepting, but additionally to further find more passion within this art form as a whole. If they have their reservations and guard up, then it's going to be hard for them to find further development. So it's important that we set a certain standard within this space setting. And yes, for myself, to be a teacher and to be a role model, but additionally to be somebody that's relatable, that not to feel like, there's an important line that shouldn't be crossed about, friend or big brother and teacher. But I try and find a perfect balance, and all of our teachers do, with still being relatable to these students and feeling connected in a social capacity, but also still providing, I'm here to teach, you're here to learn, and let's do just that. So that's the biggest thing. And to be, the voice of an underdog or the underdogs.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do have that leadership quality and also have that mentorship patience, and also to be relatable and approachable and somebody they can open up to. That's a beautiful place to be. And through this conversation with you, Bryce, and I personally learned a lot from a different teacher aspect to this, and reinform that some of my ideas that I always had before. And it doesn't have to be a scary teacher to be a good teacher. It doesn't have to be intimidating. We don't have to teach through fear. So I absolutely admire and agree your approach as far as teaching philosophy. And I also professionally, I love how you approach to today's teaching to utilize some of the traditional aspect of teaching methodology into today's teaching, let them to be versatile yet strong and have the roots in their dance, so-called plie in life, I guess. Um, Thank you. You know, Bryce, I'm so glad that we had this opportunity to meet. And I feel what you offer to today's male students specifically, it's absolutely precious. It is honorable, in my opinion, that you are representing the underdog, but of course you're perfectly able to teach the very top of the pyramid, but you choose to be the voice of the crawler, the climber, and you have my absolute admiration for that. And I encourage everyone to take advantage of your training, to take advantage of your workshops, your summer intensives, so they can be a part of this beautiful community you are creating. So to close this, Bryce, can you reiterate one more time your projects to us? So I just want to make sure everybody have this information.
Yeah, yeah. So we obviously 70% of the year we are online. We offer live classes taught weekly. Tuesday and Sunday is what we currently have. However, we're after our adult summer intensive, we'll open up to a third day of the week. We offer virtual private training. We offer a physical conditioning calisthenic training program called Ballet Athletics Training, which is specifically designed and tailored for the male dancer in mind, both as aesthetically speaking as well as functionally speaking, making sure that both in terms of upper body and lower body is well-rounded and strong. We additionally have many resources in regards for parents to support their decision making for their students and help guide them to what might be the best decision making for their student. Further than that, we have our in-person summer intensives. Again, our adult program is May 25th through the 27th in Orange County, California. Our second student summer intensive, or first student summer intensive is June 11th through 14th in Denver, Colorado. And then our final student summer intensive is August 30th through September 2nd, back in Orange County, California. All of this can be found on our website at www.themaledanceconnection.com, as well as on any of our social medias, just the Male Dance Connection. And further than that, if you do have any further questions and direct interest, you can always email me directly at director@themaledanceconnection.com. Beyond that, the biggest thing that I want to leave here saying is a unique factor, one last unique factor about our summer intensives, unlike other summer intensives, is we don't necessarily require an audition. We do not require, there's no sort of rejection or potential acceptance or something like that. If you have a desire to dance, if you have a desire to further your education, or if you didn't get into the summer intensives of your desire, we are here for you. We are here to still be able to provide you that space of exploration and growth. So again, further instilling that idea of serving everybody and anybody. For those that are in more of pre-professional route of things, we are here to serve you as well. If you are needing help preparing this next year for company auditions of sorts, we have your back. We just want to support this community as much as possible and provide as many resources as possible to anybody that is in need.
That's beautiful. I want to thank you again for taking the time with us and to share your beautiful philosophy, your words, and your aspirations. Bryce, thank you so much, and I wish you all the best. And let's keep in touch. And I love to chat with you more about some of those very beautiful subjects. All the success, Bryce. Thank you so much. Thank you.